Alright, so this is a video for those of you who might have missed class or just needed a little extra help with the lay of the werewolf. It is a story from France. The first thing we need to figure out is, what is a lay? So this is a brief narrative poem. That means it's a poem that tells a story, and these lays would be about love and adventure. They'd be written in rhyming couplets, so that's two lines that rhyme with each other. And this lay is the same. It was written by a woman named Marie. She's called Marie de France. My next slide, I'll kind of explain why. She wanted to preserve the oral literature that was sung by minstrels. So imagine you're in one of the old courts, and there's lords and ladies, and you'd have a jester who would come in and perform and sing. They didn't have television, and so they needed some entertainment. So there would be stories, there would be songs, and she wanted to save some of these unique stories, so she began to write them down. For some of her lays, she drew upon the Celtic legends from Brittany, and I'll show you a map so you see where that is. And her audience really was a bunch of rich folks, and so they wanted to hear about other nobles and people like themselves. So this was also probably performed to music, and considering that it's from the 12th century, the 1100s, you would think it might be written in an older style of French, but this translation is really easy to understand, I think, so I don't think anyone's going to have a problem with it that way. It does represent the views of this time period in terms of chivalry and love and what was expected of someone. So Marie de France was the earliest known French woman poet. And if you look where my mouse is, this area here is the area of Brittany. Kind of looks like a little thumb sticking out of France. At the end of one of her pieces of writing, she had written this: Marie en nun, si suis de France. So Marie is my name, I come from France, and that's how come she's become known as Marie de France, because we really don't have any other naming or anything with her. What is known is, of course, how she wrote. It's a dialect of Norman French, common around this area of Brittany, and this is not too far from England if the map would continue over here. She does seem to be well educated, and she spent time in England in the court of Eleanor Aquitaine, so some English influences perhaps, Norman at that time. She wrote 12 lays in all, and in these lays she was probably the first feminist writer that many people encountered. She gave women their own personalities. They were able to place their affections where they wanted. You'll see that in this one. So it wasn't so much the way life really was, but maybe the way she wanted life to be. So in terms of economics, politics, affection, she makes them their own people. So I wanted to show you some pictures from this part of France just to give you a sense of what it looked like. So we have this beautiful beach, and this stone remains here. And in this next picture, this village where the houses just look like they're stacked on top of each other on this cliff and going down. And you can see this steeple of this church here. So really neat view of this particular area. And a few more little city views. Here again, jutting out into the ocean, a sort of fortress with walls surrounding it and a watchtower. And then here's an old stone bridge, some little stone houses that have lasted all this time. And then, because a good part of our story takes place in the forest, here's a forest tree, and going deeper in and perhaps down this dark path. So this lay, like many, would explore problems faced by noblemen and women, especially those in love. So in this particular story, the husband is asked to reveal what's going on. He's been disappearing for days, and the wife just keeps badgering him until he tells her everything. This main character is a noble, good friends with the king, but he suffers from this horrible affliction. He flees to the woods, changes into a wolf, doesn't want anyone to know. So about the werewolves during this time period. Already the medieval intellectuals were saying, no, werewolves don't exist. It's just a hallucination. Common people, though, your everyday person, did believe in werewolves. This is interesting too. If somebody suffered from epilepsy, where they might have a seizure, some kind of a fit, or from autism where they were a little bit different, or schizophrenia, where they maybe heard voices, or there's a whole range of possibilities that can happen both with autism and schizophrenia. But people who suffered from those were believed to be beasts in mid-transformation. So if you were one of those people, it wasn't really good if somebody saw you having an epileptic fit. They would think you were a werewolf transforming, and they would probably torture you until you confessed to being a werewolf and kill you. So these commoners thought, yeah, okay, yep, excuse me. So these commoners thought that if you were a werewolf, it was because you had done something terrible and you were being punished for it, or maybe you were in league with the devil and the devil had granted you this power to transform. So very much like the Salem witch trials, where women were persecuted until they confessed they were witches, the same thing happened in these medieval times in order to figure out who was the werewolf and get rid of them, because they viewed werewolves as being really dangerous. So watch for the twist in this story here. It's actually the werewolf that displays this sensitive humanity and is very courteous and chivalrous and salutes the king with a proper feudal gesture, kneeling to him and kissing him. So the questions to consider here. How does this werewolf compare with those in horror movies that you've seen? Does it match up or is it different? Who in this story is the most monstrous? So watch these characters closely. What lessons are we supposed to learn? And the themes, very common in many pieces of literature. We can be so easily deceived by appearances. And then good people often suffer for no reason other than they have this bad fortune. So that is all the background that you need to know. So I've got the text here. And what is here on this front page is, it's interesting. You have a paper copy, I'm sure, so you can go ahead and read through that, but it's pretty much what I had in the PowerPoint. And then this is some literary background in terms of vocabulary and suspense, what to watch for. So we'll jump right into the story. Bis Clavre, The Lay of the Werewolf, Marie de France, translated by Robert Henning and Joanne Ferrante. So she starts with this introduction. Since I am undertaking to compose lays, I don't want to forget Bis Clavre. In Breton, the lay's name is Bis Clavre. The Normans call it Werewolf, the werewolf. In the old days, people used to say, and it often actually happened, that some men turned into werewolves and lived in the woods. A werewolf is a savage beast. While his fury is on him, he eats men, does much harm, goes deep in the forest to live. But that's enough of this for now. I want to tell you about the Bis Clavre. In Brittany, there lived a nobleman, whom I've heard marvelously praised, a fine, handsome knight who behaved nobly. He was close to his lord and loved by all his neighbors. He had an estimable wife, one of lovely appearance. He loved her, and she him. But one thing was very vexing to her. During the week, he would be missing for 3 whole days, and she didn't know what happened to him or where he went. So in this opening part, we hear this guy's a good guy. His wife loves him. He loves his wife. They seem to have a good relationship. However, she's bothered by the fact that he goes missing for these 3 days. Nor did any of his men know anything about it. One day, he returned home happy and delighted. She asked him about it. "My lord," she said, "and dear love, I'd very much like to ask you one thing if I dared, but I'm so afraid of your anger that nothing frightens me more." When he heard that, he embraced her, drew her to him, and kissed her. "My lady," he said, "go ahead and ask. There's nothing you could want to know that if I knew the answer I wouldn't tell you." "By God," she replied, "now I'm cured. Interesting here. How," she says, she wants to ask him something, but she's afraid of his anger. So does this mean he tends to show a temper, or is she just saying that to make him feel guilty and want to tell her? And then interesting too that she says, now I'm cured, like her worries are cured. Well, it's this whole werewolf disease that needs to be cured. So that's quite the interesting choice of words. Anyway, going back into the story. "My lord, on the days when you go away from me, I'm in such a state, so sad at heart, so afraid I'll lose you, that if I don't get quick relief, I could die of this very soon. Please tell me where you go, where you have been staying. I think you must have a lover, and if that's so, you're doing wrong." So she suspects he has another woman. It's not the case. "My dear," he said, "have mercy on me for God's sake. Harm will come to me if I tell you about this, because I'll lose your love and even my very self." Some foreshadowing there, because truly she does kind of turn on him once she finds out what really happens. When the lady heard this, she didn't take it lightly. She kept asking him, coaxed and flattered him so much that he finally told her what happened to him. He hid nothing from her. "My dear, I become a werewolf. I go off into the great forest, into the thickest part of the woods, and I live on the prey I hunt down." When he had told her everything, she asked further whether he undressed or kept his clothes on when he became a werewolf. "Wife," he replied, "I go stark naked." "Tell me then, for God's sake, where your clothes are." "That I won't tell you, for if I were to lose them and then be discovered, I'd stay a werewolf forever. I'd be helpless until I got them back. That's why I don't want their hiding place to be known." Does this remind you of Samson and Delilah in any way? Anyway, back into the story. "My lord," the lady answered, "I love you more than all the world. You mustn't hide anything from me or fear me in any way. That doesn't seem like love to me. What wrong have I done? For what sin of mine do you mistrust me about anything? Do the right thing and tell me." She harassed and bedeviled him so that he had no choice but to tell her. "Lady," he said, "near the woods beside the road that I use to get there, there's an old chapel that has often done me a good service. Under a bush there is a big stone, hollowed out inside. I hide my clothes right there until I'm ready to come home." The lady heard this wonder and turned scarlet from fear. She was terrified of the whole adventure. Over and over she considered how she might get rid of him. She never wanted to sleep with him again. There was a knight of that region who had loved her for a long time, who begged for her love and dedicated himself to serving her. She'd never loved him at all, nor pledged her love to him. But now she sent a messenger for him and told him her intention. "My dear," she said, "cheer up. I shall now grant you, without delay, what you have suffered for. You'll meet with no more refusals. I offer you my love and my body. Make me your mistress." Well, what do you think of this wife now? He thanked her graciously and accepted her promise, and she bound him to her by an oath. Then she told him how her husband went away and what happened to him. She also taught him the precise path her husband took into the forest, and then she sent the knight to get her husband's clothes. So Bisclavret was betrayed, ruined by his own wife. Since people knew he was often away from home, they all thought this time he'd gone away forever. They searched for him and made inquiries, but could never find him, so they had to let matters stand. The wife later married the other knight, who had loved her for so long. A whole year passed. until one day the king went hunting. He headed right for the forest where Bisclavret was. When the hounds were unleashed, they ran across Bisclavret. The hunters and the dogs chased him all day until they were just about to take him and tear him apart, at which point he saw the king and ran up to him. Pleading for mercy, he took hold of the king's stirrup, kissed his leg and his foot. The king saw this and was terrified. He called his companions. "My lords," he said, "come quickly, look at this marvel. This beast is humbling itself to me. It has the mind of a man, and it's begging me for mercy. Chase the dogs away and make sure no one strikes it. This beast is rational. He has a mind. Hurry up, let's get out of here. I'll extend my peace to the creature. Indeed, I'll hunt no more today." Thereupon the king turned away. Bisclavret followed him. He stayed close to the king and wouldn't go away. He'd no intention of leaving him. The king led him to his castle. He was delighted with this turn of events, for he'd never seen anything like it. Wouldn't you love to have a pet werewolf? He considered the beast a great wonder and held him very dear. He commanded all his followers, for the sake of their love for him, to guard Bisclavret well. Little irony there. The wolf is being guarded by the king and his followers, whereas dogs normally guard people. Anyway, and under no circumstances to do him harm. None of them should strike him. Rather, he should be well fed and watered. They willingly guarded the creature. Every day he went to sleep among the knights near the king. Everyone was fond of him. He was so noble and well-behaved that he never wished to do anything wrong. Regardless of where the king might go, Bisclavret never wanted to be separated from him. He always accompanied the king. The king became very much aware that the creature loved him. Now listen to what happened next. The king held a court to help him celebrate his feast and to serve him as handsomely as possible. He summoned all the barons who held fiefs from him. Among the knights who went, and all dressed up in his best attire, was the one who had married Bisclavret's wife. You can predict what's going to happen, right? He neither knew nor suspected that he would find Bisclavret so close by. As soon as he came to the palace, Bisclavret saw him, ran toward him at full speed, sank his teeth into him, and started to drag him down. So you got to think here. In order for that to happen, Bisclavret must have kind of kept an eye on his house and seen what had happened. Revenge. He would have done him great damage if the king hadn't called him off and threatened him with a stick. Twice that day he tried to bite the knight. Everyone was extremely surprised, since the beast had never acted that way toward any other man he had seen. All over the palace people said that he wouldn't act that way without a reason, that somehow or other the knight had mistreated Bisclavret, and now he wanted his revenge. And so the matter rested until the feast was over, and until the barons took their leave of the king and started home. The very first to leave, to the best of my knowledge, was the knight whom Bisclavret had attacked. It's no wonder the creature hated him. Not long afterward, as the story leads me to believe, the king, who was so wise and noble, went back to the forest where he had found Bisclavret, and the creature went with him. That night, when he finished hunting, he sought lodging out in the countryside. The wife of Bisclavret heard about it, dressed herself elegantly, and went the next day to speak with the king, bringing rich presents for him. Okay, so what do you think is going on here? Why is Bisclavret's wife wanting to visit the king and bring him presents? Does she want something? Is she trying to do something to Bisclavret? Does she know about him being there with the king? Anyway, watch what happens. When Bisclavret saw her coming, no one could hold him back. He ran toward her in a rage. Now listen to how well he avenged himself. He tore the nose off her face. What worse thing could he have done to her? Now men closed in on him from all sides. They were about to tear him apart, when a wise man said to the king, "My lord, listen to me. This beast has stayed with you, and there's not one of us who hasn't watched him closely, hasn't traveled with him often. He's never touched anyone or shown any wickedness except to this woman. By the faith that I owe you, he has some grudge against her, and against her husband as well. This is the wife of the knight, whom you used to like so much, and who's been missing for so long. We don't know what became of him. Why not put this woman to the torture, and see if she'll tell you why the beast hates her so? Make her tell what she knows. We've seen many strange things happen in Brittany. I like this little side note here, so take a look. Torture during this time, an acceptable means of gathering information. Sometimes testimony was not considered acceptable in court unless the witness had been tortured. Aren't you glad times have changed? Anyway, the king took his advice. He detained the knight. At the same time, he took the wife and subjected her to torture. Out of fear and pain, she told all about her husband, how she had betrayed him and taken away his clothes. The story he had told her about what had happened to him and where he went, and how after she'd taken his clothes, he'd never been seen in his land again. She was quite certain that this beast was Beast Clavray. The king demanded the clothes, whether she wanted to or not. She sent home for them and had them brought to Beast Clavray. When they were put down in front of him, he didn't even seem to notice them. The king's wise man, the one who had advised him earlier, said to him, "My lord, you're not doing it right. This beast wouldn't, under any circumstances, in order to get rid of his animal form, put on his clothes in front of you. You don't understand what this means. He's just too ashamed to do it here. Have him led to your chambers and bring the clothes with him. Then we'll leave him alone for a while. If he turns into a man, we'll know about it." Excuse me. The king himself led the way and closed all the doors on him. After a while, he went back, taking 2 barons with him. All 3 entered the king's chamber. On the king's royal bed, they found the knight asleep. The king ran to embrace him. He hugged and kissed him again and again. As soon as he had the chance, the king gave him back all his lands. Excuse me. He gave him more than I can tell. He banished the wife, chased her out of the country. She went into exile with the knight with whom she had betrayed her lord. She had several children who were widely known for their appearance. Several women of the family were actually born without noses and lived out their lives noseless. This adventure, the adventure that you have heard, really happened, no doubt about it. The lay of Beast Clavray was made so it would be remembered forever.